Welcome back to a very British space program. You find us in orbit with the Oculus 1A orbiting Earth, taking all the lovely pictures we could want. But that is not the only thing that's happening in this episode. So it's January 1959, the Oculus 1A is orbiting the Earth, and we have just heard that the USSR flight to the moon went a little bit wrong. It seems that while we managed to, in our first failure of a launch, put something roughly around the moon, they missed it completely, and they've headed off into interplanetary space, which means they have failed to get to orbit the moon. However, it does mean that they are the first to get into interplanetary space, and unfortunately that's a first we're not going to be able to get off them because we hit the moon. So I guess it's time we bring back these pictures and see what's on them. You can see we detach off the top there our capsule, and we use a little RCS system just to deorbit it. It's a really simple program, really. We're just going to burn off with our RCS until we get into something of a suitable return orbit. We're not aiming to come down too sharply. I'm not sure on the rigidity of the heat shield on this craft. We've not tested it. This is our first test of this return pod. So you can see there we take it down, and yeah, about 50 kilometers, periaps is fine. We decouple its little service module there, and there we are. That's our little return capsule. So that's going to be coming back through the atmosphere. After all that work, that tiny little bit is going to come down. It's got a little bit of film in it, and off we go. So you see we're actually coming south now, down pretty much the Atlantic, and in a minute, there we go, look at that, Falkland Islands. We're flying over the Falkland Islands, a fine part of the British Empire, the British overseas territory of the Falkland Islands. Not many British people on it actually, but it will be forever British, obviously, and we don't actually really have anybody on it. It's useful. We got some boats there waiting for our craft as we see the sun come over the horizon. It seems we're going to overshoot the Falkland Islands just a little bit, which is annoying. But it's still within boat travel time, I suppose, as long as we come down reasonably soon. That is a beautiful view, isn't it? If only we had a camera on board this instead of just film. And you can see we're actually coming towards the South Pole right now. So we've overshot the Falkland Islands. Up in the distance over there is the South Pole. I'm hoping we don't land on the land of the South Pole, or more accurate, the ice, because I think this craft would be better off landing in water. Although last episode we saw the water physics on Earth is probably not as good as we want. So we're coming through the atmosphere, and we're starting to get a bit of heating there. You can see the capsule is starting to get a little bit red. We're expecting a little bit of re-entry there. And now we're going to spin just past the edge of the ice sheets. That's useful. So some of the Antarctic survey ships will be able to pull us in and grab us and get all of these wonderful things. Of course, the Americans proposed to us that they actually use planes for catching these sort of things, but we think that's crazy. Why would you want to use a plane to catch something you can just fish out of the water? We've got a perfectly good navy. I mean, come on. So it comes down. At this point, we're a bit concerned about parachutes, but no, we pop the parachute all the way down. Lovely. We did overshoot our target a little bit, and yeah. Anyway, so we recovered it. Anyway, back to something a little different. We're going to move all of our imaging satellite work to Spade Adams in the future, because it's getting a 60-ton pad, and we're going to try and use the Australian pads for the bigger stuff, primarily the Pilgrim missions. But before that, we're going to send up on the 5th of January 1959, white signal 2B. Kim Jarvis is fresh from her suborbital flight. She is, great. She's being joined by Carol Freeman, who is now moved from Australia to the UK because, well, she's renowned for breaking things, and the Australians don't want her anymore, and we've got better facilities to fix things in the UK, so that's why she's here. We're going to leave Matthew and Rodney over in Australia, and we're going to have a bit of a competition. So Carol's going to fly this craft, and she gets it to over the 500 meters per second mark. We knew it could do this. We've seen Kim Jarvis do this in the previous episode, so it wasn't really much of a shock. She fires it back. Wonderful, lovely, sorted, brilliant. And she's going to come down and land it. And this is pretty much Carol just proving that she doesn't have to break every single craft that she gets into. If she breaks this one, she's fired. I mean, seriously fired, because this took. We don't have the facilities to build this again easily. We've got things to do here. We've got craft to build. We're going to send some orbital craft up. But yeah, she flies over the top of what looks like Newcastle, not the one in Australia, the one in the UK. Need to put the gear down. Gear down. There, thank you. Almost forgot to put the gear down there, didn't you, Carol? So she pulls it into a landing. And yeah, it just skitters along, takes some of the speed off, and puts it down nice and easy. So here we go. We're going to do some more missions for the Pilgrim team. So we've got lunar orbital contract. Okay, that looks good. We've also got a lunar impactor that we haven't done yet. But you know what? If we have to, we will. So if this goes horribly wrong, we'll just crash it into the planet, into the moon, and we're fine. So we're launching with our Trident 1A again, taking off. We're going to try and go up and use as much efficiency as possible. Now, this is the Pilgrim 1C that we're going to try and send to the moon. We do have a mission to do this, which is going to give us money, but in reality, we actually want to go polar because we want to try and get as much science out of the moon as possible. I should say, this is the 9th of April 1959. It's taken us quite a while to build this craft. But it made it, you know, it's got there, we're up. We're burning our second true stage, which is pretty much the start of the Black Arrow. The 1C is an identical replica of the 1B. It is definitely nothing like the 1A, which we are not going to talk about at all. So the 1C's aim is actually to, basically we know we've got excess fuel because the 1B was able to do its sort of flight quite easily, well, easily enough. The 1C's aim is going to be to go polar. We're going to try and get it into hopefully a very tight polar orbit so that we can start scanning over the planet's, the moon's, I keep saying planet, the moon's surface. And we want to try and get as much as we can from that surface. We want to get all of that science and understand it, because at some point we're going to probably want to go there with the probe, and we're going to probably want to land, so we need to actually understand the moon a bit better. So anyway, we're going to align ourselves for the transfer burn, get ourselves ready, off we go. We're going to do our usual burning of the RCS to ullage the engine, fire up the engine. The Spectre engine goes beautifully. We haven't had a Spectre engine fail in a couple of launches now, so hopefully the actual development of these engines has actually improved, and we're actually at a point now where we're not going to break all the time. We refine our orbit a little bit. Annoyingly, we have a perfect equatorial orbit. For some reason, we're just launching too perfectly. We really want an imperfect thing, so we change our orbit a little bit. We're going to hit the moon. The moon. It's not a moon, it's the moon. We're going to hit the moon, and then we're just going to, as we get near to it, we're going to do a little bit of a change there. So we use about 50, almost 50 meters per second of delta V, just to lift our orbit. So that we actually go into a polar sort of path, because you know what, it's just going to be easier for that. So we put ourselves onto that path to go polar. We do our burn, so this is a nice upward burn there, or radial out in effect. And the idea is that we're going to circularize just around the back side of the moon, but we're going to have to make sure we've got signal, because that's going to be key. And we want to do it nice and tight as well. So as soon as we get that periaps, there we go. Do it a little bit more, because we just want to make sure that we don't actually because of the time it takes for this to circularize, we need to give ourselves a bit of leeway. And then we're just going to fly up to our periaps, 4 or 5 days later, and we're going to burn retrograde at our periaps, or perilune, periselene. Is that right? I think that's the right phrase. And we're just doing what you've seen us do before. We're just basically trying to get into orbit. We think we should have enough fuel for this. In reality, we're going to deplete every single piece of fuel this craft has got on board, because we've used extra fuel to get into polar orbit, and it's just a bit of a more difficult situation to be in. So we burn every single drop of fuel. We get into an orbit, and then we just basically refine it. Over the next few days, we refine that orbit down. I should say, so this is, we're in April 1959, and this is our polar orbit around the moon, and there you go, beautiful. So we can get science. We're going to leave this orientated so that it can get electricity from the sun. It's going to take us a long time to get all of this science, though, because the moon rotates very slowly. It's talking months and months and months of work there. So, on to the next one. 15th of April, 1959, time for another suborbital flight of the White Javelin 2A, this time with Carol Freeman taking the helm. I'm going to be honest, we were a little nervous about this because, you know, she's got a reputation, shall we say. She broke the other White Javelin, and now we've put her in this one. So she goes up, she is aiming for a target of 150 kilometers. This is well within the range of our past flights with this craft and with the other White Javelin, so we're not too worried about that. What we are concerned about is Carol getting a bit of trust back. Because, yeah, we were thinking of replacing her, because you break one craft, that's one thing, but you keep breaking all of them, you're not helping us. So she flies up really easily, and this is Carol's first trip out of the atmosphere, which she has achieved beautifully. She gets over 150 kilometers up. She comes back down. We speed it up a little bit for you. And she comes into re-entry, and you see we've taken that higher angle of attack approach to re-entry this time, and we're trying to not use atmospheric autopilot at the start. We're going to actually use our normal SAS just to hold that angle. I think it's a little too high, but it did help slow down a bit, and we didn't get the re-entry heating and stuff that we've had before. What we do notice is we're actually flying off towards Ireland. We don't want to land in Ireland because then we have the whole Northern Ireland situation. So what she does is she does a high altitude turn at about 12 kilometers up, you see. So she's actually turning in the Irish Sea right now. We turn the RCS off because we don't need it anymore. We've got air control surfaces that are actually going to do that for us, and we're actually going to try and land it on land because we know that water is a bad idea. So we're actually going to come into the south of Scotland to Dumfries and Galloway, and we're just going to try and pop it down in Dumfries and Galloway along the coast near the Solway Firth. Isn't that lovely? And so she brings it down. There we go. Some interesting, someone's built a giant maze obviously in Dumfries and Galloway. I'm not entirely sure what that's about. Anyway, she brings it down, fires the parachutes off, and we're going to try for a solid ground landing with this thing. Let's see, a bit of a whip there. Let's see how it lands. Looks as though it's pretty level, so we know that it's balancing really nicely, and done. Well done to Carol Freeman for not destroying a plane this time. Right. It is time for our first rocket launch from Spade Adam. This will be a polar launch of the UK OBSER, or UK Orbital Biological Science Return Experiment. So this is, we could have sent up an Oculus from this launch, but instead we're going to send up this brand new satellite, and it's probably going to be a one-off, this one. Again, on a Red Princess 4B. And you can see it's got a nice standard fairing on the top there. We've seen that before. We have actually uprated it a little bit. It's got quite a long fairing actually on this craft. So what is on board? Well, it is pretty much every biological sample we could get our hands on. Obviously, the Russians sent up a dog recently, and well, they left it up there to die. And we have a lot of dog lovers in the UK, so that was not going to be happening. So we have not decided to send up a dog. We thought instead we needed something large that was sort of human-like. And we decided koala. Yep, koalas. So we've got some koalas because we've done it before. We've sent koalas up before. This time we're going to put them in orbit. So here we are, firing our engines, sending up our koalas into orbit. You can see they've got a very large craft at the top there. So this is pretty much just biological payload, return capsule, return heat shield, shall we say, and an orientation system just to keep them comfy, shall we say. So the aim of this craft is pretty much just to complete a contract, which is to return something, and also we want to get some animal experience, because while we've sent our humans up, our British fine pilots up, they've only been up there for a couple of minutes. This craft we're going to try and keep up in orbit, and we've put enough electrical charge on it. It's not got any solar panels. We've got electrical charge to keep it powered for at least a few hours, or in excess of a few hours. We want to actually have these animals experience what's going on up there for an extended period of time, probably a day. Well, I think we're aiming for a day, and then bring them back down. You can see we've got a little bit of orientation issues, but it's fine. We're gonna send our stage back down again. We don't want to put rubbish in the in orbit too much, and there we go. So this is going to be our craft. So until next time, have a great one.